You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, I'm sure that you are just over the moon and have been riding a high all day. I have no idea why, but I'm sure that that's probably in your wheelhouse right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm doing really good. It's been a fun 28 hours basically, as I got off of work yesterday and kind of started the pregame for the national championship game yesterday, and then obviously as the game unfolded, I understand that for a lot of folks it was not the close contest, and Cinderella's glass slipper kind of broke on the way into the ball. She really didn't even make it in. But you know what? As a Georgia fan, I loved every minute of it. I loved every single minute of it. I don't know that I've seen quite a dominating performance in a national championship game, at least in my lifetime. So I was
national impressed. Championship. Call it bowl game. I don't remember seeing a bowl game that one-sided and lopsided out there.
That LSU Purdue game this year was pretty bad, but no one watched it.
Nobody watched it, but yeah, that was still one of those that even then, as lopsided as that one was, it didn't. I still don't think it stacked up to last night's one-sided affair.
Yeah, it was just it was a historic night, right? First team to go back-to-back in the playoff era. First team to go back-to-back since
Alabama in 2011 and 12.
So Stetson Bennett, his story and the fact that he won most outstanding offensive player in every playoff game he played in. Like, there are some things that Georgia did and that the players on Georgia did that we may never see again, ever. So that was pretty cool. And unfortunately, yes, it came to the expense of TCU. I think the result of this game does take away from a good season that TCU had. They had a little bit of luck, but that's required along the way for any team to get to a championship game, let alone win it. But you just kind of had that feeling, even with the beginning of the game, right? Holly Rowe is talking to Kirby. What do you guys need to be successful now? He goes, aggression. And that's it. Just one word she said. He said aggression. We're going hunting tonight. I mean, he made no bones about it pregame, and you just kind of got that feeling that these guys are dialed in and they ain't messing around. They've been here before. They've lost this game. They've won this game. They know what it takes, and it's game on. And sure enough, it was. And TCU just wasn't ready for it.
No, and that was one of those that game got. For us non-Georgia fans, I tuned out to probably I think it was 45-7 when I tuned out just after halftime there. So it. It was one of those that I had other things to do than to sit there and watch the massacre continue.
Yeah. And you and I were talking about this pre-show, right? Like, I enjoyed every single minute of it. Like, I enjoyed the pregame coverage. I enjoyed the game. I watched 2 hours of postgame coverage, which I never do. And just to soak it in, right? As a fan, obviously these kids and what they've been able to do, but nothing's guaranteed. Right? They could never win another national championship. And 70 years from now, we could be talking about they have the longest drought in college football. So I'm going to enjoy this because, yes, they have tons of talent coming in. Yes, we love the job as a Georgia fan base that Kirby Smart's doing with this team. But championships aren't just handed out, right? They are earned, and they are not easy to come by. And maybe we see another one sometime soon, and maybe we don't. But if we don't, I want to make sure that I'm savoring every bit of. Man, I wish I would have enjoyed that a bit more instead of just expecting another one to come my way.
Right. Well, I can tell you it's been 20 plus years now since my team's won one, so I can And we've certainly had some shots along the way. So I can certainly understand what you're saying there, and absolutely, take notice and take moment and, enjoy the ride there. Absolutely. But they also played some professional football games this weekend too. Any thoughts on those?
The Broncos and the Texans are able to say things that very few teams in the NFL can, and that's we won our last game of the season.
Right.
Didn't mean a damn thing, but
it probably cost Lovey his job.
It probably cost Lovey his job, and honestly, it hosed the Seahawks a little bit because they have the Broncos first rounder, right?
Right.
So, as a Broncos fan, you take a little bit of solace in that. They played offensively; they looked better the last 2 weeks of the season against the Chiefs and the Chargers. It makes you. I sent a message to you and Alex right in the middle of that Bronco game. Like, damn, why didn't we fire Hackett after week 5? Like, we might have actually been like, at least not the laughing stock of the AFC, right? Because it turned into the big joke, and they just couldn't get off of it during that telecast. So, yay for Broncos fans, whatever. The Cowboys laid an egg in a game that really didn't matter, right? They had to have a lot go their way, and I know some people today are bagging on the Cowboys because they've lost to the Jaguars and they lost to the Commanders, and I get the Jags game, right? Like, we can kind of give them some hell for that one. This Commanders game, they had to have the Eagles lose and the Niners lose, and they already knew that Minnesota won. Like, they had the tiebreaker against Minnesota head-to-head,
right.
But all these things had to fall, and it just didn't. They knew going in, like, that we have to get really lucky, so let's get our players really healthy instead. Like, we'll take our chances against Tampa Bay and try and break the streak of bad performances that we've had against, to risking injury going into the playoffs and making a bad situation worse.
Right. Now, the Cowboys, you're right. They didn't look great on that one. Dak seems to be a little bit of a turnover machine there. So I get where people are kind of bagging on them a little bit, but it was a game that if they win, the Eagles lose, they at least get a home field game on that one instead of having to go down to Tampa and face a Tom Brady in the postseason there.
They do, but by the second quarter, that Eagles game was damn near over, right? The Giants weren't playing anybody. The Eagles were up by 3 scores.
Right.
The Cowboys were down 2 or 3 scores at any given moment in that second quarter. I mean,
yeah, it was not a good mix either way. Like, it was pretty clear right off the bat, though. The Lions. Yes. And I sent you and Alex a message there on the that Sunday night game saying go Lions, and I'm not gonna lie, I was talking to my wife and all that as they were going. I go, I think I might be a bit of a Detroit fan. Like, I might honestly be a bit of a Dan Campbell and the Fighting Kneecap Biters. Right. I might just have to go and like get a shirt that says that.
Right. And we kind of started falling for them last year, right? Because again, they just kept fighting for them. They were outmatched talent-wise, but they just kept fighting, and they did it all season long. Kudos to them for ending up above 500. Is it silly in some aspects that they were so excited to knock the Packers out? Yeah, but I understand the aspect that they feel like Green Bay treated them like the redheaded stepchild that didn't belong, right? And for them to go out and knock them out of the playoffs after they felt disrespected, good for them, because as a professional athlete, you're always looking, as any athlete, you're always looking for that chip, and that's where they found it. That's where they found their chip, and they used it. So kudos to them. Congratulations. Unfortunately, your run doesn't continue, but it was a good way to end the season.
I bet you San Francisco's happy that their run didn't continue. Like, that's one of those.
That would have been an interesting one, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, that was the thing, is that was probably one of the few teams that you didn't want to have to play in divisional wildcard weekend was the Lions, just simply because they'd gotten so hot at the right time. They came out, and the Packers had everything to play for. because regardless of what had happened earlier with the Seattle game, all of that, if they win, they're in, they're at home. They've got a Hall of Fame quarterback that very rarely loses games at Lambeau in the months of November and December. And all of that, Detroit literally had nothing to play for other than pride. And yeah, they certainly, certainly did that, came out and just kind of smacked the Packers in the mouth and kept it coming all game long, it seemed like. So, yeah, that was one of those that was a very fun game to watch. And I'm glad that was the game that we got to watch to end the regular season here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think those were kind of the highlights, right? Like the Bills thing was fun, right? It was a good story. It was cool to see, them take the opening kickoff back and what it meant for that franchise. Good for them. The Chiefs handled their business. The Ravens didn't play anybody and got beat up by the Bengals only to turn around, and now they're playing the game again in Cincinnati. And we'll see if we get round 2 and kind of.
And we might see Lamar back on this wild card weekend here as well, and we'll get into some of our thoughts on that one as well. But that was one of the other things that kind of struck me as odd, right? We have this whole thing about if the Chiefs and the Bills meet up in the AFC Championship game, that it's going to come down to a coin flip on a neutral, or there's going to be a neutral field, all of that. My question is why, if the Bengals won in week 18, why didn't that come down to a coin flip to see who got the second or third seed? Right? Because had they won that game that they were leading in week 17, they would have gotten the second seed on that one. Or why wasn't the NFL and the competition committee, because there's a real chance that we might see the Bills and the Bengals meet up here in divisional round. Why isn't that one come down to a neutral side or a coin flip to determine who has home field advantage? Like, that was one of those that I can see why a lot of Bengals fans, a lot of Bengals organization were a little upset with the rules committee and how they kind of handled some of that after the fact and going into some of the seeding. Like,
yeah, it's the one aspect where the Bengals have a legitimate gripe that they got screwed over something that was of no fault of their own, right? Like, we're all glad that Damar Hamlin's recovering and that it's a much better scenario than what could have been. So now moving past the on the field and everything that surrounded off the field, the NFL handled this poorly. And it seemed like they were trying to make every justification for the Bills possible because they felt bad for them. And in the process of doing so, I think really jaded some people towards, what should have really happened. This is the downside about not playing the game at all, right? And trying to come up with this. And now you have a team that Kansas City, they won 14 games. Why shouldn't they be able to have home field advantage? Yes, they got the week off, but why should they have to play a neutral field? They weren't even involved in what happened there.
Right. And not only that, but by doing that, where they've got to, if the Bills and the Chiefs meet up, it comes down to a neutral site and all of that. You're in essence saying that the Bills would have won that game. And that's and the Bengals would have lost that game. Like, we don't know that because it wasn't played out there. And not only that, when that game was played, both teams had a possession at that point, and the score was that the Bengals were up 7-3. So, there's lots of different things that could have happened, and I don't think that they went probably far enough into looking at some of the other scenarios there. And I can see why the Bengals organization appealed some of those things and made some, tried to get some rulings changed on that. I can absolutely understand why they went about it and why they were looking to do that. And they were unsuccessful at that one, but that's kind of where we're at and where we sit. So anyway, any other thoughts from this weekend here?
No, I don't think so. I guess as we get into this. Congratulations to J.J. Watt on a really good career, right? Hall of Fame caliber. We'll see how that shakes out. I suspect he'll end up in Canton. If I had a vote, he would be in the Hall of Fame. I would vote him in. But we'll see how that shakes out. But kudos to J.J. Watt. Congratulations. Enjoy retirement, and thank you for being one of the utmost gentlemen in a game of brute strength and will.
Absolutely. All righty. So let's go ahead and head on into the Pine and Shine recap. We got the final Pine and Shine to recap there. Alex didn't get his in last week, so we're not counting those. He finished third, is where we're gonna say he just finished in the season final there. For my Pine, I called for Travis Etienne to be a Pine. He was consensus ranked running back 6 going into that game, going up against a very tough run defense. What about, and that one ended up hitting for me. Certainly did not have a good game, like 17 rush yards. Definitely a hit on that one. What about your Pine?
My Pine for the week was Ramondre Stevenson. Back-to-back games to kind of end the fantasy season poorly. Damian Harris was coming back, so I was shying away from him, and it worked out. Another ho-hum game for Ramondre to end the season, which is unfortunate because he really did have a good year, right? The last few weeks kind of muddied the fantasy waters with Harris coming back and them not passing the ball to him as much as they changed game plans for whatever reason. But when he stopped catching all those passes out of the backfield, his fantasy production dropped through the floor.
Right. And then that takes us to the Shine. I called for Christian Kirk to have a pretty darn good game, and that he certainly did. 99 yards and a touchdown. Definitely had a shiny week there. What about yours?
I called for Rodgers to shine. I thought that he would have a much better performance on Sunday Night Football to get into the playoffs against the Lions team that had been giving it up through the air a little bit. And I missed on that one to end the season. He kind of crapped the bed along with the rest of that Packers team.
The good news is, though, is you did finish above 500 on the season with 18, 15, and 3 on
it's
that
like
one.
Kissing your sister, man. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, well, that'll happen sometimes, I suppose. All righty. I ended up taking the crown this year, so I stole the crown from you this past year, and I know that you're going to be coming out with a vengeance for it to get that crown back for next season. But finishing with a record of 23-9-4, I'll take it, and we're on to the offseason and looking to defend that crown for it next year. So that's where the Pie and the Shine ended up finishing out for us there. We're going to go ahead and move on into just kind of a recap of what we've got out there as far as some of the socials and some of the polls that we have out there. Right now, we've got the Fantasy Football Awards out there, and make sure that you go through, you submit your pick for those guys. You get voted on those. Best place to find that is over on our Twitter handle. And the first award that the first one that we're looking at is the MVP nominees: Patrick Mahomes, Austin Eckler, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce. And Kevin, we'll just kind of go through this one, and you get to take a guess. Since I'm looking at the polls, you get to take a guess as to who's leading the voting for that right now.
Austin Eckler.
You would be incorrect. It's Patrick Mahomes, 33% of the vote. Austin is a close second, though, with 28. All righty. Let's go ahead and head on over to the draft darling, where we've got the player that was the best draft value. Austin Eckler, Ramondre Stevenson, Jamal Williams, Jared Goff were the nominees there. Got a guess on this one?
I don't care what anyone says. It's Jamal Williams.
That is by far the front runner right now at 48% of the vote. So
okay, good. I'm glad folks are thinking along the same line. Like, look at these names. I don't care who you say. It's Jamal Williams.
Right. That leads us over to the Buster, and the Buster was who's the biggest bust for fantasy football. We've got the nominees of Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Kyle Pitts.
JT, because he played the whole season and just crapped the bed because he was your number one running back, right?
Yeah, it's a very close race, though, right now. Only 2 percentage points separate. And realistically, the way that these things are rolling, it's like 2 votes right now are separating Kyle Pitts and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
So very, very close here. The waiver wire winner. So what player was the fantasy football league winner from the waiver wire? Nominees were Greg Dortch, Jarrett McKinnon, Evan Ingram, Christian Watson.
I would assume it's McKinnon because he probably won you a fantasy championship, or at least got you to the title with the way he was playing.
By a wide margin, 55% of the vote there. Rookie of the year, we've got the nominees: Kenneth Walker III, Chris Olave, Tyler Algier, Garrett Wilson.
I'm going to say the people voted for Kenneth Walker, and I'm going to tell them they're wrong.
Well, the people have spoken, and they did say Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, it's the name value. I'd tell them that they were wrong. He did not do enough. Honestly, it probably should have been Algier,
who's actually last in voting right now.
Yeah. Let's see, if you had Tyler Algier and Kenneth Walker on your team in the playoffs, which one were you starting to get the points?
Oh, Algier won people some leagues.
Yeah,
guarantee you that. Yeah. Especially from the standpoint that he could have been, in a lot of cases, was probably your flex play in going through a lot of those and had several top 10 weeks as a running back. So,
yeah. I will agree to disagree with the voting community on that one.
All righty. Well, the polls are still up, and on Twitter, they've got about 5 days left or so. So if you haven't gotten your chance to submit the vote, head on over there and get your vote in there. We'll also be getting some polls up going on Instagram and Facebook. And if I can figure out how to do a poll on TikTok, we'll do one over there too. So lots of fun. Make sure that you're heading over there, getting your votes cast, all of that. And we'll be announcing the winners for that here this next week when we go live next Tuesday. So anyway, that's going to go ahead and take us down here. Any final thoughts here on the nominees, the voting, that you want to make an appeal to somebody that's not winning, that should be winning in your thoughts?
I understand. I think really it's the rookie of the year one. Like, I think I understand the rest of them, and I'm not gonna argue with Mahomes. Like, I get it. I think you could have found comparable play elsewhere to cover that quarterback position. We saw it out of Goff. We saw it out of Geno. But I understand Mahomes is the name. I'd argue that it was Eckler or Jefferson. I think Jefferson might lose it because he kind of pooed the bed during your biggest game of the season. So I understand that. But Travis Kelce, I mean, being 100 points ahead of the second place person in that position group, that is a difference that is really hard to make up. It is a really, really big gap to make up. And especially, coming into the fantasy playoffs, he was kind of sputtering a little bit, and then poof, life took off again, right? And big games, found the end zone. Here we go. And you got normal Travis Kelce. So not too big of an argument other than the rookie of the year. It really should have been Tyler Algier. Not that Kenneth Walker wasn't good, but Kenneth Walker was, I don't know, he was okay for 2 weeks and then hurt for a couple weeks and then came back and was just average in a couple games and then had one big game and then back to average games down the stretch. Algier got better, right? As you played weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17, that's where Algier was at his best. And, we've seen it in other awards, right? Sometimes it's not what you do all year long. It's what did you do for me lately? Algier won you leagues. Kenneth Walker was just a serviceable piece.
Right. Yeah, that is very true.
One man's opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's go ahead and head on over into the coaching carousel. And it is that time of year. Black Monday has come and gone. A lot of coaches saw some pink slips on Monday. In the case of Lovie Smith, they didn't even wait till Monday. They took care of that one Sunday night, seemingly right after that game happened. But so right now we have several vacancies out there. You've got the Cardinals head coach, you got the Panthers head coach, the Broncos head coach, the Texans head coach, and potentially the Rams head coach. Lots of rumors, kind of floating around Sean McVay, will he, won't he, what that looks like over the course of the season. Anyway, what are some of your takes here on some of these positions?
I think some names are still emerging. Obviously, we have Jim Harbaugh, who had a 2-hour meeting with the Broncos today, and at least the beat writers here in Denver are saying that he is now the front runner. Well, of course, he's the front runner. He's the only guy you've talked to. So that'll be interesting. Dan Quinn, for the Cowboys defensive coordinator, has interviews lined up with, I think, at least 3 of these teams, if not 4, to kind of see what is going on there. He will get a lot of really good looks. He's done some really good things with that Cowboys defense. And then the Texas head coaching position, they're looking to interview Dan Quinn again. I think they're also looking to talk to D'Amico Ryans, who a lot of people have kind of slated for that Texans job. But realistically, I would tell D'Amico to not take the Texans job. Like, I understand there's only 32 of those around, but the Texans have gone back-to-back years with one-and-done African-American head coaches, right? Like, it's just not a good look. So if you're D'Amico Ryans and they're expecting you to just like poof, turn this turd into, something golden shiny, they're unrealistic down in Houston. And it might be the most dysfunctional franchise in the NFL right now. Another team to think about is the Colts, right? I've seen Harbaugh tied to the Colts head coaching position as they try and figure out what's going on there in Indianapolis. So there's a lot of different things kind of floating around here at the moment. With Kingsbury gone, it would be interesting to see if he goes back to an OC gig or if he goes back to the college ranks and kind of see what his thoughts and ideas are. The Titans just fired their offensive coordinator as well. So there's some different things moving around here. So a lot of names getting tossed around right now. I think there's only been 1 or 2 actual interviews. We'll definitely see some more of those here in the weeks to come as teams kind of really get ramped up for this, as some of these coaches get eliminated from the playoffs and others free up time in between the conference championship week and the week of the Super Bowl.
Right. So definitely lots of things kind of swirling there on that. Some interesting things that I keep hearing out there is that one of the coaches in the playoffs, his job may not be safe going into this weekend, right? Speaking on Mike McCarthy with Dallas, I've heard lots of things here that if he loses this game, that could be the end of him, because Jerry, wants to try and bring Sean Payton back to the organization, yada, 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 right? Like lots of those types of things. My question to you at that point is, if you're Jerry Jones, you've already got a guy under contract doing, being the head coach that's led you to the playoffs last couple of years, that already kind of wasted a long stint of a surefire Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer, with only 1 Super Bowl to show for it. So why are you going to bring in Sean Payton? That's kind of the same knock there.
I think that Sean Payton it's the way he just handled his business, right? Like in New Orleans, only did get the 1 Super Bowl, but it was the numbers behind it. And he is the sexy name this year, right? Mm-hmm. It's just kind of one of those things. I think if I'm any one of these franchises, obviously you need a new head coach because you're frustrated with the way that your organization was heading. You weren't pleased with the performance that you got and the leadership that was coming down to your team. On top of the fact that you need assets. You need assets to get better. Not all this is fixed with just coaching. And to give up a first-round pick plus X, Y, or Z.
And a big dollar contract as well.
Right. Like you are, and most of these owners, I don't care about the dollar contract. I mean,
Right.
we've seen it. The new Broncos ownership will spare no expense. It's like John Hammond from Jurassic Park, right? It doesn't matter if the animals eat you. We spared no expense for you to have entertainment before they go, rabid and then eat you. So I'm not worried about that. These teams will pay him $20-25 million a year if they have to, but it's giving up the extras. Is he worth a first and a third, or 2 firsts, or whatever they're going to get if a team's willing to hire Sean Payton away? Is he worth that? And you're sacrificing the short-term progress of your franchise, not knowing how long Payton's going to want to stick around. So if he signs a 4-year deal worth $200 million, right? And the math didn't quite add up, but 4-year deal for $100 million. How about that? $25 million a year. And you're going to be draft pick depleted in year 1. A lot of these teams are up against the cap. So then you're trying to fight cap. You don't have any rookie youth talent to bring in. You can't build through free agency. Like, what good are you doing your franchise other than just saying, well, we have Sean Payton?
Right.
Like, I just don't see how that works for a lot of these teams. Like, the team that could probably pull it off the easiest is the Chicago Bears, and they're not even in conversation here.
No, because they just hired their young head coach last year. Actually, let's go down this rabbit hole. Just because, quite frankly, I heard some talk and conversation. The Bears have the number 1 pick right now, right? And seemingly everybody on their short list right now, right? We're very early into the draft process for the NFL, but almost everybody out there that you look at, from big name, small name, yada yada yada, has Alabama's Bryce Young as the number one pick going into this one. I heard so many talking heads today talk about the fact that the Bears need to trade away Justin Fields to draft Bryce Young. Yada, 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 that this coach, this GM are not tied to him at all, which is correct, right? They were brought in under the previous regime. But at the same time, too, right, is Bryce Young's a smaller quarterback than Justin Fields is. Justin Fields is doing things that, quite frankly, I don't think any of us really thought possible with that Bears offense, the way it was made up. They don't have anything when it comes to offensive weapons out there. They have a run game. That's it. David Montgomery, Justin Fields, and away we go, right? Like, coached poorly to start. They started bringing some things around there. But that was one of the most interesting things I kept seeing, was the fact that they need to dump Fields to go with Bryce Young. I'm a big fan of don't do that. You've got a guy that, quite frankly, we've seen this how many times play out now, that quarterbacks in their 3rd year take the big leap forward. And all of a sudden, you see these guys really take hold. Right, Jalen Hurts this year, like, there was a lot of people in this offseason asking if Jalen Hurts was a legitimate starter in this league. It was in the MVP conversation for most of the season.
Mm-hmm.
If we remember back to a guy named Josh Allen going into his 3rd year, there was a lot of people that were riding the bandwagon that he was a bust going into his 3rd year. And all of a sudden, he takes a big step forward on that. This could very well be the year that we see Justin Fields take the big leap and become that franchise quarterback for the Bears. And you just got to get him some weapons.
Yeah, I don't think getting rid of Fields is the answer. Now, the wide receiver free agency pool is not very good. No. So that is what it is. But if you need so much more if you're the Bears, right? Like, maybe it is Jalen Carter, right? Maybe you need that strong defensive tackle who's going to be able to soak up bodies on the inside, who can put some pressure against the run and do some of those things. If it is, great. Maybe you're looking for a left tackle, right? Like, maybe you just want to protect Justin Fields. That way he can throw the ball more and do some different things. Like, they have so many problems right now that you're better off going offensive or defensive line. And then in the 2nd round, seeing what falls in the draft. And if you need to step up and get a receiver, go for it, because they have enough draft capital that they can make some moves and move around, even if it is back up late in the first, or shuffle around and get a couple extra seconds somehow to make this happen. But getting rid of Fields is not the right answer.
Well, and they already have two seconds on this one because of the Roquan Smith deal and their own pick on that one. But at that point, right, like we've seen this one, this isn't like in previous years where the number, this wasn't like last year where the number one pick is a like, yeah, maybe we'll see this move, maybe we're not. The market isn't super great out there. There's a big chance that you can. This is the type of quarterback class that you can dangle that number one pick out of and get 2, 3, probably 3 first rounders and some other draft capital out of on this one. And that I think makes a lot more sense. And not only that, if you can get another first this year, so you can move back, potentially get another first this year. There's plenty of really good wide receivers, even some guys coming out of Ohio State this year that, guess what, already have the rapport built up with Justin Fields.
Yes.
So that would make a lot more sense to go that route. So anyway, I took us a little off a topic there. Any other thoughts or any other things you want to do to button that one up?
No, I think you're spot on there. Trading Fields isn't the answer.
Fair enough. Terry saying bang, bang, Niners gang. Yep, they are certainly looking good heading into the playoffs here. Any other thoughts here on the coaching carousel?
No, I think some of it's still some wait and see, right? Like we are going to have to figure out what progresses, what other names get thrown in the hat here. I don't expect a lot of these to be decided quickly. I think that there's going to be a little bit of wait and see here as teams try and vet things out and get it right.
First domino to fall. Who do you think it is?
Ooh, first domino to fall. Let's see here. I think the first domino is going to be, I think it's going to be Carolina.
Okay. I like it. Do they stick with Steve Wilkes or do they bring in, like, did Steve Wilkes do enough to get another chance as the head coach over there?
If Steve Wilkes is willing to sign a 3-year contract, then yes. If his agent's pushing for something longer, I think that's where they might struggle. But I think he's worth a 3-year run. Like how this team turned around and played after trading away Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe you need to change up some staff a little bit. Maybe you want to give Wilkes the opportunity to, really go through a draft and bring in some more of his guys to implement his system a little bit deeper. Obviously, they need to figure out the quarterback position and do some things there. But this Panthers team is they're closer to being at least a division contender than they are from a rebuild mode. How about that?
Right, especially with that division and the way that it is, right? The
Buccaneers,
this is, I think, their last run at this one, right? Like they're old. They need a lot of work on that one. The Saints are, the Saints are the Saints. They're not looking great there. So, yeah, you very well could be right there. The Falcons, I think, are still a little ways away. Terry saying McCarthy will be fired if the Cowboys lose on Monday. Terry, we were talking about that a little bit earlier where, that might be the case. But who do you bring in to replace him is the question there. Who do you think that you're going to get that's going to do better than what he's doing with that roster? Like that's some of the questions there. Also, here's some crazy things, right? I've heard both the Lions defensive coordinator and the Lions offensive coordinator, both of those names getting circulated very heavily out there in the coaching carousel out there. And the funny thing is had you look back at week 8, week 7, week 8 of this season, like there was a lot of question on whether or not this entire Lions coaching staff was going to get fired. Like that was they were saying a lot of heavy hot seat there. And Terry saying Sean Payton. Jerry Jones, I think has it out to go try and get Sean Payton at that. I think he would love to see him back in Dallas. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but the question that I've got is if you're going to bring in, and I posed the question to Kevin a little bit ago, so I'm going to just pose it again. We'll move on. But if you're going to bring in Sean Payton, you already have a guy and the head coaching role that was already paired up with a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot, surefire Hall of Fame quarterback, in which all of those years together you managed to get one Super Bowl trophy. Do things really change under Sean Payton? I don't know that they do. If you're Dallas, right? Like I don't think that does. You're talking, I'm not seeing Kellen Moore's name out there as much in the coaching carousel, but Dan Quinn's name is still heavily brought up in the coaching carousel this year. And you think about it, if both of those coaches are so ready to be head coaches and they're so ready to do that, like they need to just handle their business on their sides of the ball and be able to bring home wins on those things. And it's just the head coach's job at that point to go, yep, your game plan's in order, looks good, manage your business, and let's move on.
Yeah, the Cowboys were third in the NFL in scoring offense this year. So you can be frustrated if they have an early exit again, and that's fine. But again, they were without Dak for 7 weeks, and they're still the third highest scoring team in the NFL. Like, this team can put up points. And I understand it's some of the little things, right? It's the clock management. It's maybe some game plan preparation stuff. It's, being able to overcome adversity. Like, that's where the Cowboys have struggled this year, is when they get down, they don't come back.
Right.
They're great front runners. But they really seem to struggle when battling and really trying to get a 60-minute game in. So, yes, a change in coach can help, but it can also make things worse. The nucleus of this Dallas team is still very young. They like Dan Quinn. They like Kellen Moore. If you bring in Sean Payton, he already has kind of his coaching staff built up from a lot of rumors, right? So you're getting rid of a lot of these guys who have really made a good impression on these young Cowboys players. So it's all stuff to be paying attention to. And where Cowboys need the most help is continuing to rebuild their offensive line to protect Dak and to rebuild the dominance that they had, 10 years ago when it was clearly the best offensive line in football. And you're not going to get that by giving away, tons of draft picks to get a coach. Where is it an increase? Yes, they end up better, but is it marketably better? I think that would remain to be determined.
Right. Terry saying to him, Dak equals Kirk Cousins. I'm going to assume that that's like a prime time, having a hard time finishing under the bright lights, some of that stuff. Keep in mind, Kirk Cousins is a okay quarterback at the NFL level. Like there were many years that I would have loved to have seen Kirk Cousins instead of the slew of quarterbacks that we had here in Denver. Like yeah. So there's lots of things that can be said there.
Not everyone can be Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Right.
Right. Like Joe Burrow, right? Like not everyone can be these top end quarterbacks. Like Lamar Jackson. Everyone Lamar Jackson's not a great quarterback. He's statistically relevant.
Wait right there on the statistically side of it. If you had to take another quarterback that was statistically very much the same as Lamar Jackson, who would it be this year? I did some diving into this earlier, and it was
statistically the same as Lamar Jackson.
Put up very similar statistical outputs. Granted, they played 16 games. Lamar only played 12, so I will preface it there.
Oof.
And this quarterback actually had a higher pass completion percentage than Lamar did.
God, it's probably something crazy like Russell Wilson or something like that.
No, it was not. It was not that crazy.
Okay,
but it's a guy. Bad. It's a guy that also is trying to fight for another contract because his team didn't pick up his 5th year. It was Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had a similar rush attempts, similar rushing yards, more rushing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson did. He had 7. Lamar only had 3. They were right within 50 yards of each other rushing the ball. They were within 8 rushing attempts. Daniel Jones actually had better statistical output on the passing side of it than Lamar did. Let's see. Daniel Jones completed 67% of his passes for a little over 3,200 yards, 15 touchdowns on 5 interceptions. Lamar Jackson put up 62% completion percentage, 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns on 7 interceptions. Like, it blew my mind when I started diving into this and looking at this thing going, oh my, because it was like, I was looking at this more from an angle of when Lamar sits down to negotiate this contract, what's the comp out there? Where can he go? What can he, all of this is like nobody else is like Lamar. Nobody else, plays that type of game, all of that. We just saw the Giants have Daniel Jones, who by all considerable measurables is a bust in this league. And they very well might be moving on from him, after drafting him as a top 10 quarterback for their franchise. They have a very similar statistical output for that. And record-wise wasn't that dissimilar, right? Lamar Jackson was 8-4 in his start. Daniel Jones in his starts was 9-6-1. Like even a winning percentage wasn't that far off there. So kind of crazy. Now, again, I'm not saying that those two are the same. I'm just saying the statistical output between them was not that far off. Terry saying at one point in time, Dak had the following weapons around him: the number one offensive line, prime Zeke, Pollard, Cooper, Gallup, Schultz, Lamb. We saw when that season that Dak got hurt, he was on pace to just set the league on fire. And maybe the answer isn't that we need to see Dak go out there and throw his right arm off, and these games need to be won and lost on that. The Cowboys have done very well when they've established the run and been able to play behind the run and control the clock and play complementary football. Like that's where the Dallas is going to actually be able to win these games, is complementary football, not Dak throwing the ball left, right, and center and going crazy on this one. There needs to be some difference done in coaching on that one. And that's more of an offensive coordinator and the game plan that needs to be put through there than necessarily on the head coach there or the quarterback. Like, run the ball. Dak should have dominated Philadelphia with Wentz, Washington, and Danny Dimes. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but the NFC East has been bad for a long time. Like this, and there's a lot out there that the fact that they played the AFC South, I believe, on their off like as far as their non-conference games, had a lot to do with the fact that the NFC East had such a winning record this year, more so than anything else, I think. Anyway, any other thoughts on this one? Are we ready to head on and make some calls on some of the games?
Let's make some calls. Let's get into games.
All right. Let's head on over here. Wildcard weekend. We got the Seahawks. We got the Niners. Niners favored by 10. The over-under on this one, 43. What are your thoughts on this game?
I am taking the Niners. A lot of places I can find them at 9.5 now, and I like the hook even more because I think that 10 points is a pretty good differential here. But regardless, I'm taking the Niners. I'm going to take the under in this game, I believe. I think mess with my sheet. Excuse me. I'm taking the over. Yes, I'm taking the over in this game. So, couple different things, right? We have the Christian McCaffrey factor. He has been on fire. Debo is back, and not that Debo's had the greatest season in the world, but what Debo's presence does is he opens up other people because you have to pay attention to him. Brock Purdy has been extremely serviceable. It'll be interesting to see how he does in these playoffs. But he has done a very good job captaining the ship down there for Kyle Shanahan. So kudos to him. And ultimately this Niners defense, yes, they got beat up a little bit 2 weeks ago against the Raiders, but they kind of fixed their ship against Arizona as that game went on. And I think they're prime here to make a run. So I'm going to say the Niners handle Wildcard Weekend easily.
Yep. You, me, and Alex all have a consensus on that the Niners cover and that the over is hit on that one. Terry has a little different opinion there. He thinks that the Niners 27, Seattle 13. So he's going for the Niners to cover the under on that one there. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, this one, I think this game is kind of the game with the least amount of allure this weekend.
Yes.
I don't see many people giving Seattle much of a chance. You might have Seattle to cover, but all in all, I think, 80+% of the population is on the Niners to win this game.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It was actually kind of crazy when I was looking through some of these things earlier as far as that goes. But like right now, as far as some of the money or some of the percentage of bets goes, 68% of all bets out there are on San Francisco to cover the spread on this one. So pretty big deal there. Would not surprise me to see this line end up probably closer to 11.5 when it's all said and done. So the fact that we can find it at 9.5, I'm liking that one. Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and head on into the second matchup here. We've got the Chargers. We've got the Jaguars. The over-under on this one, 47. Chargers favored by 1.
I'm taking the Chargers in kind of a revenge game, right? They got absolutely embarrassed by this Jaguars team earlier in the season. The Chargers are now healthy for the most part, right? Mike Williams got dinged up just a little bit in that Bronco game, but Eckler is in prime form. Keenan Allen, I think, is ready to kind of take this team over in the receiving core and help them make a deeper run. And this defense continues to get healthy, and they get after the quarterback very well. So as long as it's a big if they can contain Travis Etienne to, 70 yards or less and keep him out of the end zone, I think the Chargers do find a way to win this game. I think they're more equipped. The Jaguars have had a great season, but I don't know that they're ready to make this step into the divisional round just yet.
Right. Yeah. The Alex also taking the Chargers and calling for the under on that one. I was the outlier when it all came down to it. I'm calling for the Jaguars to win this thing. I think that they're going to see the over. This one's not going to surprise me. This one getting into a bit of a shootout, something like 27-24 type of matchup when it's all said and done here. I do think that the Jaguars have got something cooking. They finished the game. They finished the season out strong, right? Like we talked about on some of the Friday shows here, the momentum going through it. The Jaguars certainly have the big Mo on their side. They're a young team, up and coming team. You start seeing some of these things come together where they're believing in what they're doing. They're believing in each other here a little bit. And we saw the Chargers kind of stumble going down the stretch here a little bit. So I don't know that I'm really that gung ho behind the Chargers here as well. And the fact that the Chargers rush defense has not been very good, and we could very well see Travis Etienne have a big outing in this one. So I do like the Jaguars to win, and I do like the over. Terry threw his call in there, 28-23. He's in favor of the Jags there. So Terry, we'll see. You and I've got a similar total there. I'm thinking 27-24, but we'll see how that one comes to play. All right, Wildcard Weekend here. We got the Dolphins and the Bills. Bills favored by 10.5. Over under on this one, 43.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Dolphins to cover, and I think it's the hook that does it for me. If this game was set at 9.5, I think I might lean on Buffalo, but both these games have been relatively low-scoring games this season. Miami's done a pretty good job keeping Josh Allen in check, and I do think they find a way to keep this closer than the 10.5. So I would take the Bills on the money line. I take the Dolphins to cover, and I'm going to play the over. I think there's going to be some points in this game as this Bills team is juiced up and ready to go, and we're just kind of hoping that the Dolphins keep pace just enough to cover is kind of what we're after.
Right. Yeah, you, me, and Alex, again, consensus on this one. We're all taking Miami to cover. We're taking the over on this one. When I look at this one here, right, there's still some speculation out there. Is Tua going to be back? Is Tua like that I don't know. But what I do know is that this Dolphins team seemingly can get up to play when they need to a little bit. And I think that we're going to see that one come to play here to the point where they keep this thing within 10.5, right? Like we're not going to surprise me to see them lose by 7, lose by 8. That's not going to surprise me, but I do think that they keep this thing under the 10 mark on that one. I do think we see some points when it's all said and done here. This one's not going to surprise me. Even a 24-20 type of matchup. Like I could see that one come into play too, where maybe there's a little bit of weather. We see this was a little bit even lower scoring game than what I originally thought, but I still think the over comes in pretty easy on this one here. Terry thinking that it's Buffalo 33, Miami 27. So he's hoping for points up there in Orchard Park.
Yeah, I honestly, if Miami puts up 27, I'm impressed. Like, we'll see. Obviously, it kind of fits the narrative that what we've been talking about, but man, I think Miami scoring 20 is a victory in this game.
Yeah, well, especially if Tua doesn't go, and we see.
And I don't think he's going.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason why he is. He's been dinged up a couple different times, both with this concussion deal. Yes, you want him to play if you're a Dolphins fan, but at the same point, if you even have half an inkling that he is your guy going forward, you got to make sure he's right. Like, you can't just keep risking head injuries going out there, or what you're wasting is his career and his ability. So you got to make the right business decision on this one.
Right. And, he has yet to be cleared for activity at all. So it's a little tough for him to try and be ready to go in that deal if he's not practicing, not getting that going there. Terry's changed his pick to if Tua's out, Miami 13, Buffalo 31. So that could be. So, we might see a second iteration of Skylar Thompson with the start on this one. All right, next matchup here. We've got the Giants. We've got the Vikings. Vikings favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 48.5. What are your thoughts here?
A replay of a game that was played earlier this season, right, where the Vikings needed a 61-yard field goal to win this game. It's all on the Vikings defense, right? We know this Vikings offense can put up points and can be electric even. At sometimes Justin Jefferson is a very difficult wide receiver to cover. Dalvin Cook has kind of been non-existent, though. Like, you need the emergence of your run game to keep safeties down in the box and allow Jefferson to do some of the special things that he can do. High pointing the ball, winning those one-on-one coverages, all that good stuff. So it'll be an interesting game plan. Irv Smith is back. I would really like to see how much 2 tight end action the Vikings are going to go with Hawkinson and Irv Smith in that tight end role, and just see if they kind of change it up and give some formations that maybe the Giants weren't prepared for, and try and win this game on the ground. But I do think ultimately the Vikings have enough to cover the 3. A push wouldn't surprise me here, but I think the Vikings are more likely to cover the 3 in the under. I'm going to take a lower scoring affair.
I think you're right there. You, me, and Alex, again, consensus on this one, thinking that the Vikings are going to cover the spread. We're going to see.
Do you think it'll be a good week for us, or we're going to be regretting it?
Yes. I just hope this week ends like my spread did last week, where I did very well on that one. So I'm hoping for a repeat here. But yeah, I do think that we're going to see the Vikings end up. This one feels like a push when it's all said and done. I think I'll take the Vikings to win and probably push, but that's where this one seems like it's going to be. I do like your prediction of the under there as well. This one feels like a 20-17 type of game, 23-20 tops type of deal. Like, I don't think we're going to see a shootout on this one, even though Vegas seems to think this one's going to be a little bit higher scoring affair. So I that's where I think it's going to end about 20-17 when it's all said and done. Terry's got his call there. He's saying that the Giants 24, Minnesota 21. So he's calling for the upset here. Thinking the Giants are going to move on to the divisional round here. So could be. Terry's on the under with us though. So, we just all got to hope for not many points scored in this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, let's go ahead and head on over to the Ravens and the Bengals. And the Bengals favored by 6.5. The over under is 43.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Bengals in the under. I just don't see how Baltimore is going to put up points. I don't think Lamar Jackson's going to play. And even if he does, I don't think that he makes enough of a difference in this game. A little bit of rust, been out, lack of chemistry, lack of receiving options. Mark Andrews has all but fallen off the face of the planet. So you're going to need a monster performance out of J.K. Dobbins and Kenyon Drake to be able to try and keep this close. But at the end of the day, Baltimore secondary is sketchy, and we saw a bit of that here last week, and I think the Bengals are going to try and capitalize on even more of that here this weekend.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do like Cincinnati to cover this thing. They just won by 11, and they won by 11 going away pretty easy. Like that was the, depending upon when you jumped on that line, like on a lot of books, the Ravens came back and pushed on that one because the line had gotten moved to 11, but that was a late backdoor push type of cover on that one. So I don't know that I'd like them to do that. Plus the fact that Cincinnati, coming out, they've got a chip on their shoulder, I do think, when it's all said and done here, and they're going to come out and do it. I love the fact that I don't know if you saw Joe Burrow's presser earlier when it was somebody asked him, what's the championship window for Cincinnati? He goes, as long as I'm playing and I've, my career and I'm here. That's the window that we have to win a championship in Cincinnati. So
I appreciate his arrogance and in a
Yes.
good way, right?
Yes.
Like he's confident in himself. He's confident in his team. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But I do think that the Bengals win this thing by a touchdown. I do think, both you and Alex took the Bengals and took the under on this one. I'm going to go with the over on this one. I think that we see just enough points on this thing to go 43.5, so low point total. Not going to surprise me to see this one end somewhere in the neighborhood of 28-18 type of thing. Like, I think that's about where we're going to see this one play out there. So I've got the Bengals winning it easy, the over on that. Terry saying that he's got Cincinnati 26, Baltimore 20. So it looks like he's taking the over, but taking Baltimore on the hook cover there. So we'll see how that one plays out, and we'll, it should be some fun there. Let's go ahead and head over here to the Monday night game, which we have a Monday night playoff game, kind of an interesting move here. We got the Cowboys, we've got the Buccaneers. Cowboys favored by 3. The over under on this one, 45.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Cowboys in the over. They got to find a way to break the streak, right? And so a lot of people are picking the upset here. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to tell you the Cowboys win this game. They cover this game, and the over. Brady's going to drop back and throw it a lot. I think Dak's going to have to kind of keep serve. But ultimately, I am trusting the Cowboys offense that they can continue to move the ball a bit more than what the Buccaneers offense has really shown all season long in a lack of offensive consistency.
Yeah, Alex is one of those guys taking the Bucks to at least with the points there. And he's going to call for the over there as well. So both of you two are in agreement on the over on that one. I'm going to side with you on saying that Dallas ends up covering this thing. They win this thing, even though that they're the road dogs here in a rematch of early in the season, right? But I think we see the Cowboys kind of get their stuff together here and go on the road and win one. The Buccaneers have looked bad all season long, with the exception of Mike, Evans blowing up in the final game of the week 17 there. But I don't think that this is one that we're going to see continue. I do think we see a lower scoring affair though when this one's all said and done. I think we see fewer points on this one. I've got Dallas winning this thing, something to the tune of about 21-17, I think is where this one's going to come down to. So Cowboys win it 21-17 in a low scoring affair. I think the defense has come to play on this one when it's all said and done. So any other thoughts on this one?
No, I understand why they put this as the Monday night game, right? It's probably going to be the best playoff game that ESPN's had in the course of a decade, it feels like. So hopefully it turns out to be, what everyone hopes it is, right? This should be a tightly contested game. Baltimore gives Dallas fits. But I do think that if Dallas can get over the hump here, it will kind of serve as a catalyst for their playoff run.
Yeah. Terry calling for the upset, says Dallas 23, Tampa Bay 24 in a closely contested contest that he's calling for the over on that one there. So he's joining you and Alex on that over side of things. But alrighty, well, that's going to take us down here to the end of the matchups. Any final thoughts on any of these games?
No, should be a good overall. I feel like it's a good weekend slate, right? Like I'm not in love with this Niners Seahawks game, but I think there's a reason it's the morning Saturday game. Is everyone realizes that this is the one that should be the least competitive when it's all said and done with. But overall, it should be a good wild card weekend. So I hope everyone's able to sit back, enjoy, put a couple units down on the game, have some fun with it, and see if we can win some cash.
Absolutely. So that's actually gonna take us down here to the end of the show. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners on any of the other topics we talked about tonight?
No, I think we've kind of covered them well enough. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in and hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Hopefully this season found you successful and lucrative, if you will. And I know it's always the best way to help us out is like and subscribe. You can reach us on all your social platforms at Good Old Boys FF.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, so I'll leave it at that. Great job on the social side out there. So again, make sure you hit the subscribe button, youtube.com/@goodoldboysff. Best place to support us. We're going to be going live every Tuesday from here on out at that 11 p.m. Eastern during the off season. You know how we do it over here on the off season. We got a lot of coaching carousel still coming your way. We got a lot of free agent talk coming your way. We got a ton of draft coverage coming your way. And then, of course, we're going to get into our team breakdowns here as the offseason progresses here. But thank you very much for everybody tuning in here. Join us next week as we start, keep going through some of these matchups, keep going through some of these breakdowns, as well as the fact that we actually crown some of those MVP or some of those fantasy award winners. Make sure that you vote. You can find those on the socials. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.